morning and welcome to the Closer's Inner Circle podcast with your hosts, Ben Gay III and Denise Griffitts. And this episode of the Closer's Inner Circle podcast, I love saying that, is sponsored by the Closers, also known as the Sales Bibles by Ben Gay III. Now, these vital resources are crafted to enhance your sales skills and transform your business approach. So, whether you are an experienced professional or just starting out your sales career, the Closers offers essential insights and strategies to help you with your goals. Listen, I've had these books on my bookshelves for years, and my part two, which is the one I'm always in, is falling apart. You need these books. So, in just a few minutes, Ben will share with you how to order those books with free shipping. And our topic today is mastering sales objections. Ben Gay's 6-step strategy for success, part 2. So please open up your Closer's book, part 2, to page 53, which features a chapter titled When You're Hit with a 2x4. We've talked a bit about this in this podcast, but it was a ways back, so we're going to go back over it again. And Ben's training approach emphasizes preparation, practice, and strategic setup. There are no mistakes or no accidents in sales. And this methodology is grounded in the understanding that much of selling is predictable, kind of what I just said. And in this episode, we will begin exploring Ben's 6 steps, which really is 5 steps, and includes his 6th step that serves as an emergency escape hatch. That's the interesting part. So you will learn well, it's all interesting. You'll learn how to effectively handle 90% of unexpected, write that down, unexpected objections, provided you are selling a worthwhile product or service at a reasonable price to a qualified prospect. And I'm saying that slowly. So good morning, Ben. It's Wednesday. It's always the best day of the week as far as I'm concerned.
It is for me too. And good to hear your voice again. And can't wait to dig into it.
You mentioned in our green room a little bit, you've got some submitted questions from our audience. And to our audience, thank you. Number one, you're listening to us, which we really appreciate. And number two, you're taking time out of your day to send us questions. So keep them coming.
Well, super happy to do that. I've made random notes all week long, questions that were specifically asked, or the way my brain operates, people ask a question or I'm talking about something and that reminds me of something. So I'm quick to write it down. As for the closers, let's get the commercial out of the way. If you don't have your copies of the closers, any or all of them, the best place to get them, where you get discounted pricing, free shipping. They're still signed and dated by moi. That's French, Denise, for me. And signed,
Really?
she's Southern, so I have to explain things to her.
Yes, but I live in Cajun country. They all speak French here. And have you ever noticed that when you curse in French, it's very pretty? It's
Yeah, it is.
nasty, but it's pretty.
Yeah, it reminds me of Cabot Roberts used to say, Ben Gay can tell you to go to hell and have you looking forward to the trip. Having been cursed at in New Orleans and a few places in Cajun, I thought, well, that's lovely. It was like getting a massage. But by the look on his face, I don't think it was a compliment.
No. You know, I had one that I used to just love, and I would mutter it under my breath. And finally, a friend of mine said, "Do you know what that means?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "No, you don't." And he explained it. Oh, okay, I won't be saying that out loud again.
We all have a few of those in our closet just waiting to pop out at the wrong time that we didn't understand when we first heard them. So, hoisted on your own petard is one of mine. I'll explain that to the folks sometime if they're interested. But my mother used to say it all the time, and I pictured it being a knight riding along on a horse, and the horse stumbles, and he's got the lance under his arm, which I assumed was also called a petard, and somehow he got hoisted on his own petard. Turns out it's a downward blast of gas, uh, which could be which could be just a lady came up to me at a seminar and I'd used the term 2 or 3 times and she said, "Do you know what hoisted on your own petard is?" And I said, "Yeah, well, my mother uses it all the time." She said, "Really?" describe it to me. And so I did the horse and the lance thing. And she said, no, it's a downward blast of gas, also known as a fill in the blank. And you might want to check with your mother. I called mom and I said, do you know what hoisted on your own? She gave me the night on the horse with the lance. And I said, no, mom, we we've been traveling around the world for years, saying something very bad that we didn't know about. She said, oh my God. I never heard her say it again.
I've actually used that in writing, and then once you told me what it really meant, I stopped doing that.
I'll take that out.
So, yeah, I'm not going to be doing that one again either. It's just
Well,
amazing the things that you learn about, yeah, our
after
language.
the fact, yeah.
Yeah. So
The
tell people where they can go to get the books.
go to get the closers with all the benefits I just told you. Go to stores, stores dot ebay.com/, and this is all one word, Ronzoni Books, RONZONEBOOKS, and just answer the questions and place your order. If it gets here by 2 o'clock on a business day, it goes out that day. If not, it goes out the next business day. Might want to get your orders in before Labor Day when the post office is shut on Monday. And it would do that. Now, if you want to reach me directly about my mentoring program or with questions or comments, it'll then pop up on this show. Just shoot me an email. B as in Ben, F as in Frank, G as in gay, the numeral 3, BFG3 at DirectCon, it's short for Direct Connect, DirectCon.net. And if it's appropriate, I'll get back to you that day. If it's just a question that we can hold for the next Wednesday, I'll do it that way. While we're giving out information like that so we can get to work, Denise, tell them how to reach you and why.
Just go to either info or support at yourofficeontheweb.com. That's my digital agency. I'm a web developer by trade, but info at or support at yourofficeontheweb.com. And I really am easy to find. You can find me on yourpartnerandsuccessradio.com. And since we're talking about, you mentioned our commercial, I am now getting ready to sponsor, offer sponsorships for Your Partner in Success Radio, as you know, is in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts in the globe. And I'm still shocked by that. Delighted, but shocked. So that page, excuse me, is going up on denisegriffitts.com tonight. So if you want to sponsor this podcast or sponsor Your Partner in Success Radio podcast, get in touch. We're open for business. It's been a long time coming. I didn't want to do it for the longest kind of time. Now I'm thinking, it's time. Yep, I'm ready. So I'm easy to find. Oh, and my toll-free number, 888-719-6711. Again, it's 888-719-6711. So, and Ben, I was telling you we're talking about the closers, and I will be part of the family very soon with my book, The Closers Part 4. And I was working on it way early in the morning this morning, and I just got through telling you that the final chapter has its final name, and it's called It's Showtime. Now tell people why it's called Showtime. It's because, that's everything that you're going to learn in that book. You get to that chapter, it's showtime. That means you're ready to go. Let's go.
Well, where the phrase came from, it's a show business phrase, but the way I got it was I went wandering into a meeting one day where I was going to speak, and a dear friend of mine, Merle Frazier, one of my mentors, took me aside and he says, Ben, pull it together, pull it together. I said, what? And he said, you wandered in here like you're on a beach. You got, whatever it was, 1,000 people in here. You need to approach he said, go back out in the hall, come back in, and have the show business attitude of it's showtime. and act like that. So I did, and I've done it ever since. In hotel rooms, when I leave my room, I check my jacket and tie if I wear one, and as I step out in the hall where other people can see me, and in a hotel, there's other people there frequently who are at the seminar I'm on the way to. I put my shoulders back and say, "It's showtime." I do the same thing if I don't make many anymore, but if I was making a sales call when I get out of the car, I realize that people may be looking out the window of the office. And I've caught people doing good things and bad things by looking out my window when they arrive. So I always say to myself, put it in park and say, okay, it's showtime. You've prepared your whole life for this, you practiced for this, and so on. Now it's all on display. Go for it. So when you told me that the last chapter was going to be called It's Showtime, I just loved it because by the time they get through reading, because I've read bits and snatches and talked to you about it, by the time they get through reading, they're going to know how to build a podcast, do a podcast, interview the guests, get the guests ready, explain the rules to them, and all the technical stuff is unbelievable. And I'm frankly glad that you and I agreed to co-host this show once a week before I would have read your book, or else I might have tried to do it on my own. I'm happier with this, but not everyone has this opportunity.
No, and
So
we've been friends for so long. It was just a natural fit. I mean, when when it was raised, I went, me? My hand was in the air going, pick me, pick me, pick me. I'll do it with you. So I was hopping up and down in my seat going, me, me. So it was
well,
embarrassing.
we've had two of those co-hosting this show together. Was one pick me, and I was thinking exactly the same thing as I was slyly sales infiltrating you into asking me to do it with
No.
you.
And I
And
read the book, so I knew what you were doing, but I was still saying, pick me, please pick me. I'm your only choice. Pick me.
and then the closers part 4, same thing. I slyly brought up the subject and all. There it required, ladies and gentlemen, a little push because writing a book is a challenge. So I finally had to say to Denise somewhere in the conversation, you're writing the closers part 4. Comprehendo?
Yep, you did. And you used a tone of voice I've never heard from you before. I was almost cowed. Almost.
Almost, yeah.
Almost. Yeah. But I was like, I remember calling you back and saying, did you say what I think you said? And you said yes. I said, okay. And that was the end of that. So,
Well, it's our honor to have you in the family. We're busy building the closers encyclopedia of selling. My goal is to get up to the closers 25, part 25 before I croak. I don't have that many titles in mind yet, but the tide has shifted. Highly qualified, uh, famous or semi-famous people are coming at me. They now want to be part of the family. So I can envision about a 3 foot, 4 foot length of books on the bookcase, all of them bearing the closer's name, all of them filled with material I'm very proud to have in the family. All right, you want to start through my notes?
yeah, it's really exciting. And thank you so much for inviting me. I started to say another word, but for inviting me. You didn't bully me. You did sales infiltrate. So that's part of the closers part too. But yeah, let's do our questions real quick. And then this is when you're hit by a two before. This is such a great chapter. So we'll get as far as we can. We'll be doing this for a couple of weeks, I'm sure. So question time.
Well, last week we talked about reverse shoplifting, how I got the closers into major bookstores because we didn't go through an agent or a big publishing company. One, they turned us down after we'd sold a few million copies. Suddenly they were chasing us. But by then I'd figured out that self-publishing was better. So I said, no, thank you. And thank you for not accepting us when we first asked you. But that left, they do have some channels of distribution that left us out of without a little struggle. So as I told you last week, I overheard a conversation between a checker and the customer in front of me in line. And the checker said something, they couldn't find the item. I don't know if it was a can of peas. I don't remember even where we were, but somewhere she couldn't find the item. She said, well, that's okay. I'll just enter it and then it'll be in our inventory and we'll always have it. And I went, what? They don't have it in their inventory, which adds the question how to get in the store, but whatever. They don't have it in their inventory, but a checker at the check stand is capable of putting it into the whole nationwide chain. And then it becomes a standard item. They reorder automatically without having to have a buyer make a decision in the beginning or at all after that. I'm thinking, is that what I just heard? And it was. So I went back to the office, got a few copies of the closers parts 1 and 2. I think that's all we had at the time, or maybe even part 1. But anyway, went into the store, looked like I was shopping, went to the book section, the sales business section, and put the closers on the shelf. And I don't know, 10 days later, we got an order from that company for 50 books and 4 or 5 places to ship them, and then an order for 200 books and et cetera, because somebody had walked in the store that I went into, found the book appealing, picked it up, took it to the register. They couldn't find it in the computer. And so they entered it in the computer. And as soon as they did, it showed they were out. They had one, they sold it. So they were out, and the computer said, we got to get more of these in, and off we went. So that's called reverse shoplifting, which led me to make a note last week, reverse infiltration, sales infiltration, get inside and do a good job with them. And here's the example I had. We had a check coming a week or two ago from a financial institution. It's a pretty good sized check, nothing earth shattering, but several thousands of dollars. And they promised me it would be there by Friday a couple of weeks ago. And I said to Gigi, be on the lookout. It'll be here. They said by Friday. I said, which means Tuesday. And she said, why would they delay it? I said, no, it'll be here before the Friday they promised. It'll show up on Tuesday. They said Friday. So when it didn't, so we weren't calling going, where's the check? Where's the check? Where's the check? They get tired of answering those things. So I said, mark my words, Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. Well, Tuesday, there was the check that was supposed to be there 3 days later. And the reason was they were trying to make us they were trying to surprise us and make us be happy and not have to answer 40 stupid phone calls about where's my check. That's sort of reverse infiltration. Here's another one. One day I'm a avid reader. If I have nothing else to read, I'm like a little kid. I'll read the ingredients on a Cheerios box. So I'm waiting for some eggs to cook in the microwave, boiled eggs in one of those things where you put the water in and put the eggs in, and then hit start and wait whatever number of minutes or seconds it was. And I'm reading it, and it said, put the big end down. And I looked at some of the eggs that were still there in the container, and you could usually tell there was a fatter end, but some of them, they were identical. Plus, it didn't make any sense to me. Why would you put the big end down? The microwave doesn't know what it's cooking. So, being the reader I am, I dialed the 800 number on the instructions, and lady answered, and I said, you said in the instructions to put the big end down. And she said, yes, that's very important. I said, why? That doesn't make any sense at all. And she laughed and she said, okay, here's the truth. We get so many calls from people wanting to know which end to put down. We had to come up with an answer. She said, we probably here in the call center got hundreds of calls a day asking which end is the big end and why do I put it down? And she said that shut off all those calls. And I said, well, that's very clever, which reminds me of the check thing. I said, however, I've run several businesses where we spend our days trying to get people to call us. If I had hundreds of people calling every day who are obviously cooking eggs and want to know big end or small end down, and which is it, I would have another product to sell them at that point. An egg spatula, an egg scrambler, an egg something. She said, that's a good idea. I said, connect me to your sales manager. And so I went to the sales manager and I said, this is free. I've got time in my hands and 20 seconds to go on my eggs. So I'll be quick. You have, I'm told by your tele reps, 200 or 300 people or more a day, or you had it calling, asked about big end, small end. He said, yes, that was a real problem. I said, well, you've solved it. Now you have 200 or 300 less prospects, customers calling you every day, when at that point you could sell them. And I made up 4 or 5 products. And I said, you probably already have these items to sell. And there was this long pause, and he says, I'll be damned. My God.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know it for a fact, but he said they were going to take that part of the instructions out and get people calling again. Which end's the big
And you
end?
did it for free. And I'm laughing because I have an electric chicken that cooks my eggs. She does a good job. I put them, the pointy end down. Because they kind of wobble when you put them in the fat end up, and I fill
Yeah,
it with water, and then I literally will stay in the living room so I can hear it clucking at me, because once it starts clucking, I better get over there. I'm going to have, cracked eggs.
or an explosion on your ceiling.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. But eggs, you gotta have them, right?
Well, anyway, look for ways to get people to phone you, including leaving out information that make them call you. The egg people supposedly, I only have had one set and I haven't read new instructions, but supposedly have taken out big end down. They want you to call, and when you call, you're about to buy a Teflon frying pan or a spatula or a gizmo you put inside the egg and it scrambles it or something, because we found them 300 new customers a day back then, which I'm sure is more than that. Next on my notes, somebody mentioned to me, they said, when you called on, oh, this is a customer, client. He said, when you called on us, we talked later that you hadn't been in our office 30 seconds when you started using we. And I said, yeah, that's just part of the way I talk. And they said, no, it's sales genius, sales infiltration personified. And what he's talking about is I don't try and when I'm making sales calls on the phone, on the computer, whatever, I don't try and wheedle my way into their organization where they accept me like a friend. I start acting like a friend immediately. Things like, what do we do when this happens? Now, what do you do when this happens?
I
Or
do the
what,
same.
yeah, what do we do when this happens? What do we do when the customer calls and so on? So I infiltrate the organization by, it's one of my favorite words. And after I was asked about it, I became acutely aware of how much I use it. There's not, we talk about it in sales infiltration. Most salespeople believe there's team A, the salesperson, versus team B, the customer prospect, and they need to go to war and negotiate and all, where I believe in forming team C, which is a combination of the two teams who've agreed on what the problem is, how we're trying to solve it, and so on. And we are trying to solve this. We are a team. I'm not a salesperson on the outside trying to wheedle my way in. I'm part of the team. And we were talking about last week with carrying the ladder into an event nobody else can get into. The reason is the guards look up, here come 2 guys dressed appropriately, carrying a long ladder. people step aside. Part of our team is coming in to solve a problem with a ladder. Get out of their way. And then you put the ladder down and go into the concert or whatever it is you're trying to get into. It works like a charm. And using we in your sales presentations also works as like a charm. Then somewhere during the
And
week,
remind me, let me interrupt just a second or
yeah,
I'll forget. Remind me to tell you, and I told you this in the green room, but I was sales infiltrated yesterday and it was so excellent. I wrote a blog about it. So keep going and then I'll tell
no,
you my.
share it right now.
Are you
That's the
sure?
logical. Yo, sure. What you
Okay.
got?
Well, as you know, and I mentioned it's at the top of the show, I'm in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts in the world, which seriously, I'm so honored by that. But I get emails every day, Monday through Sunday, sometimes at midnight. And most people are really trying hard to give me the information that they think I need to make a decision, a quick decision. Do I want to have a pre-interview with this person? And some are just like, do you want this? I had one said, do you want this guy? I was like, what? No, I don't. you know, Try again next year when you've grown up. No, I don't want anything to do with this. But I had this one that was so beautifully written. It instantly told me, yeah, of course, who he was, but more importantly, what he and his team would do for me as the podcast host. Yes, he gave me what he would want to talk about, what, his information. Turns out I know this man. I'm pretty sure he's been on my show 100 years or so ago, but he didn't remember it, and I'm not sure I can even find it anymore, but it was a long time ago. But everything he wrote in that email was gold. And I told him, I said, listen, did your team write that or did you write it? Because when we do a pre-interview, we talk about a lot of different things. I need to get to know you, like you, and trust you, or you can't come on my show. It's really that simple. So if I don't like you, you're not coming on. But he said, no, I wrote that. And I said, it was gold standard. It was so perfect that I actually wrote a blog about it. He said, it's what? I said, it was gold standard. It's perfect. He was so excited. So was I, because I was able to take that, turn it into a blog post and say, this is how you do it. If you want to get my attention or anybody's attention who's at a high level podcasting, at what we do, give us what we need. Don't make us hunt. Don't kind of throw out platitudes or generalities. Tell us exactly what's in it for you. And more importantly, what's in it for us. It was brilliant. It was gold standard.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that term, gold standard. And that's, if ever being asked, how has selling changed since you've been in it? Which is a lot of years. And I say it hasn't changed. Technology's changed, but people are still looking for a quality product that's reasonably priced. And if you're calling on the right person and you fulfill those two things, you probably have got a sale if they need it or they're running low or whatever with their previous supplier. So, but I said to make it simple, they all listen to WIIFM, a radio station. What's in it for me? Because I don't care how polite people are and how sweet they are and so on. In the back of their mind, as they're listening to your presentation, they're saying, what's in it for me? And if the answer is nothing, then that's what you've got is a polite conversation. And that gentleman apparently has the ability to tell you clearly up front without being asked what was in it for you.
Mm-hmm. It was
And
brilliant. It
yeah,
really was. I could have hugged him. So,
well,
it's going to be part of the book. I
that's
mean, it was
that's
so
sort of creepy.
important.
You shouldn't be hugging strange men that you don't even remember if you've met them or not.
I've never met any y'all. I just I am an introvert. I don't go around people. You have cooties. I just don't go around people. But I remember him and I've connected with him here, there, and yonder all over, social media. So he's not a stranger to me, but it's in the blog and it's going to wind up at some level in the book. It's that important.
Super. Well, send me a copy of that when you get a chance. I'd
I
really
will.
like to see if it's gold like that.
Yeah.
I need to research it, change two words, and claim it was mine.
It's yours. You can have it. So, all right, let's open up to page 53. Are we ready?
Yeah, just one more quick one so I can finish up this
Oh,
particular
okay.
note page. Uh,
Sorry.
One of the questions I get frequently is, are there sales jobs available? Here's the answer. If you can close sales, represent the product fairly and make them proud of you, you can be employed in a good sales job by sundown. People always need salespeople. I probably mentioned this to my son. I've got four, but my oldest boy was going to Alaska on that mysterious summer deal they do where they go to Alaska, get a job on a fishing boat, and get rich in 3 months and come home. Doesn't work out that way. And some are killed. But with those two,
Crab fishing. Don't try that unless you know what you're doing.
yeah. Uh, anyway, they were getting ready to go, 7 or 8 of them. I wasn't there. I don't know. They were plotting at my sister's house in Atlanta, and we ought to go here. And they had maps out and all. And young Ben was watching. Young Ben is now 54, I think. Young Ben was watching something on television, and Jane, my sister, who is like a mother to him, said, or an older sister, said, Ben, you're not paying attention. They're plotting what could change your life over here. And he turned around and he said, Jane, my father raised me to be a salesman. They can pick any spot on earth and I'll be employed by sundown. And he was, which is a whole other story. I'll tell you another time. But he got them all employed, and
Right.
in such a manner that he didn't have to go out on the boat and risk his life. He worked in the office and ferried material, food, etc., out to their boat, and therefore fed them, clothed them, etc., and sent them on their way. And he went back to the nice warm office because he was a salesperson. So to the person, and I frankly forget who I was talking to when this came up, are there sales jobs available? Yes. Wherever you are, yes. If you can sell, there is work available to you in the poorest of economies, sometimes better in the poorest of economies because they desperately need sales. I joined some group uh, randomly quite some time ago. I forget why, other than I'm just curious about things. But anyway, it posted me in a group of people looking for sales work. I don't think it gives out my name, but and therefore people post, we need a VP of sales, we need a this and so on. And you can look at them. I've never done it or filled out anything, but it's sort of fascinating. I get in Northern California, I'm guessing an average of 50 job offers and or opportunities a day, from president down to sales manager. I think sales manager must have been something I checked. That's as low as the offers go. And then a funny one while that subject. So the answer is yes. Yes, there's sales jobs where you are right now, willing to move a few miles or travel a little bit. There are 3 times that many jobs available. You can be, if you can prove that you can close sales, you can be employed by sundown. The other day, I got an offer from some company, small company in Sacramento, to be their sales manager remotely. That was the good news. I didn't have to go to their office. I guess I could do it on Zoom or something. I don't know. But anyway, it paid. Are you sitting down? $40,000 a year.
Is
I
that
look,
good
yeah,
or is that bad? If you're broke, I think that's not bad.
yeah. There have been times when 40,000 a year would have been great,
Right.
but they haven't been in the last few decades. But anyway, I looked at that figure and I thought that sounds familiar. That figure has floated around recently, and then it dawned on me what it was. I can be their sales manager for $40,000 a year, or I can go to work at McDonald's, $20 an hour, 2,080 hours in a year, in a work year. That's 41,600. So I started to
Goodness.
write them. I didn't, but I started to write them and say, I was entertaining your offer, but I decided to go to work at McDonald's because you want fries with that is easier than running an entire sales
Yeah,
organization.
unless you get hit with people throwing stuff at you, there's that
Yeah,
problem. So
yeah, and that
I
happens
don't
too.
know. Yeah, it does. You'd have to pick the safe one. But 40,000, I guess if you are starting out, you've never really done too much of this kind of work. And I'm just guessing, I'm thinking off the top of my head. I do that a lot, but if you can start at 40 and prove your worth, you can do a lateral move, go somewhere else, or you can go up and earn more money.
Yeah, get your foot in the door.
Right, right.
I, I
Get some
work.
training.
My first job was 45 cents an hour plus tips bagging groceries at Big Apple in Atlanta. And I just did that. That's $936 a year. And I was happy before tips, which is where most of the money was. I was happy to get it. Now, granted, things have changed. Food prices have gone up a bit since those
Oh
days,
yeah. Yeah.
but it's 40,000 a year has numerous times has not been my beneath my dignity. But now that I have a choice of 40, almost 42,000 a year, saying you want fries with that, I've raised the bar a little bit. And then one last one, real quick, talking to Randy Chaffee and Wes Wyatt the other day. Somebody had put up something about, they spent a good deal of their life, an hour and a half or something, learning how to pronounce Worcestershire sauce. And I'm not sure I pronounced it right, although
Worcestershire. Yeah.
yeah, although I used to sell it when I worked for my father as a food broker. And I, on LinkedIn or Facebook or somewhere, wrote some little amusing story about that and not being able to pronounce it. And Randy wrote back and said, "Is there nothing you haven't sold?" And it almost had a little air of disbelief to it, like questioning if I just made that up. One of the things that has given me a tremendous advantage in life and selling and so on is I worked for my father, first sort of serious, well, that's not true. First serious job I had at Macy's was in the housewares department. We had, somebody told me, I never counted them, but I'm told we had thousands of individual items for sale in the housewares department, and I had to become conversant in all of them rather quickly because when the lady or gentleman came in to buy the lawnmower, the pot and pan set, or the 88-cent gadget or whatever, I had to know quickly what it was for, and so on. So that gave me thousands of items I had sold right there. And then I went to work for my father, a food broker. He represented, I'm guessing, 50 companies who probably sold a total of 500 or 600 different items. And then I worked for George Friesen and Associates. He was a manufacturer's rep, and I was traveling the southeastern United States. Again, quoting from memory, I think we represented 20, 25 companies, and each one of them probably had at least 10 products, if not more, that we sold. So there's another 250 items. So I have sold directly or indirectly thousands of different items. So the answer when Randy says, "Is there anything you haven't sold?" I'd be hard pressed to give you one. In some form, fashion, or other, I've sold them all. Cosmetics, I've run two large cosmetic companies. So when I say I've sold Worcestershire, if that's how you pronounce it, I have. And uh, Tutman Thurlow's, no, the bitters, uh, behind Angostura Wupperman bitters, that a good bar runs through one bottle about every 10 years because he puts one drop in some drinks. Uh, I was a rep for Angostura Wupperman bitters. That's the low end of my sales volume. My father one year got a free television set because he had sold 9 cases
Oh
of
Lord.
Angostura Wupperman bitters. When they brought it up in this meeting we were in, I thought, oh my God, my father's going to get fired right in front of me. And this gentleman with a British accent, because that's who owns the company, Bermuda or someplace, said, "Mr. Gay, we are very proud of you. The trend is up." 9 cases.
Oh, when
And
you said bitters, I figured it had to be English, UK. It's not something we produce around here, I don't think.
Yeah, in bars they do. I said to a lady one time in a bar, because I was talking about that product with somebody I was with socially, and I said to the lady, "Do you have any Angostura Wepperman bitters back there?" And it's a small bottle, about the size of an A1 bottle, comes wrapped in brown paper, which stays with the bottle. And she said, "Yeah, I think that's what it is." And she went behind the bar and said, "Yeah, we have this. We put a drop in a Manhattan or something." And I said, "How many of those bottles do you go through a year?" And she said, "Well, I've been here 10 years. This is the same bottle that was here when I got here."
They're not a
So,
popular item.
well, you just, no one sits around sipping on a bitters bottle.
Oh God, no.
So anyway, yes,
Just the
I've
sounds
sold
of it.
thousands of items because I've been in situations where that's just what they were doing when I got there. But it gives you a broad perspective in conversations
Right.
when something comes up and you go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I did that," or "I know that," or talking about sales volume. Yeah, I know what it's like to sell 9 cases in the entire southeastern United States and win a television set.
Talking
So
about
anyway,
Worcester, my sister, bless her, we were talking about this the other day. I don't know why. We just go off on tangents, and she could not as a child and still cannot as an adult say aluminum or linoleum. Just
oh,
couldn't do
okay,
it.
yeah.
And, siblings being siblings, we would torment her. We didn't know that she was smarter than us. We found out fairly quickly. But we'd say, "Hey, how do you pronounce linoleum?" And she'd say, "Floor tile." "Well, how about aluminum?" "Tinfoil." "Okay, fine, never mind." We'd have to find another way to pick on her. To this day, she says tinfoil. What else do you need to know?
Jimmy Rucker and I were sitting in a bar in one of Ernest Hemingway's favorite bars in Key West when we were in the Coast Guard, and have our 2 cutters happened to be in port at the same time. So we went out, as young men tend to do, and had way too much to drink in that bar. And Ruckers uh, knocked over a drink or something. And he looked down, he says, "Oh my God, I've spilled my drink on the linoleum," which took me a minute to figure out was linoleum.
See,
So
she can't even
ever,
get that close. It's just floor tile.
yeah, I can't look at linoleum without thinking of Rucker and linoleum. So on
It's
page
funny.
53, when you're hit by a 2x4, which is what we promised when all this started, we'll go through that quickly if you don't mind, right? Hello?
You're on. You've got the microphone.
Okay. And you didn't, apparently. I was sitting here by myself thinking,
Oh,
"Oh, I got to wing it again." Anyway, the starts out with sort of a cute story. A gentleman is, county fair, is selling unicycles and offering a demonstration, and he can teach you how to ride the unicycle. The point of the whole chapter is there are only about 5 objections that you will ever hear selling product ABC. And if you've been in selling 30 days, you've probably heard them all 5. And if you don't have answers prepared for them, then shame on you, because those are the same 5 objections you're going to be hearing for the next 25, 30 years if you stay in that company. And, but the exciting times in selling comes up when they come up with the 6th objection or the 8th objection, one you've never heard. And in this case, uh, the gentleman selling is doing the unicycle thing, and he'll teach you how to ride it before you leave, and that's a guarantee. And the guy says, "You'll teach me how to do it now?" And he says, "Yep, that's it. Come on up." And so the crowd parts to let him go up, and there he stood with a crutch and one leg, and ready for his unicycle sales training seminar. And there was that awkward moment, which makes it one of the other 3% that he'd never heard of. I haven't talked to him in years, but he'd never heard that objection before. And the last time I talked to him, still hadn't heard it again. It's sort of a one up. but you got to be ready for them. And so, when it pops up, first, it's a 6-step program. First, resist the temptation to instantly fill the air with sales babble. Person comes up with an objection, you don't know the answer. Salesman knee-jerk reaction, salesperson's knee-jerk reaction is to start chattering. This is, I'll start talking and the answer will come to me, and so on. Well, sometimes it doesn't, and your customer knows intuitively that you don't know the answer uh, to come up with. So here's step one when I encounter those, and I still do occasionally. They ask the question, I go silent. James Jimmy Rucker used to love J. Douglas Edwards saying, when you ask a closing question, shut up. And he'd scream, you shut up. And he gives an example. He asks a closing question. He shut up. The guy he was talking to shut up. And Doug Edwards claimed, by my watch, 20 minutes passed before anybody said anything. I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes a great story. Here, you go silent and let them think about their objection. And in the book, I use the most common one I hear. If you do that, the customer will say, oh, never mind, it's not that important anyway. They were frequently being clever. If it were really an important question, you'd already have heard the objection before and you'd have an answer ready for it. So let them hang on their own hook for a few seconds or minutes or what have you. They will almost always bail you out by saying it wasn't important or re-explaining their objection to something you have heard before and you can answer that. Second, if you aren't lucky enough to be bailed out by your customer and you have to come up with an answer, preface your response with, that's a really good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. That makes your customer feel important and intelligent and indebted to you for praising him or her in front of other people and so on. And it also shows that you care about the answer. Third, have him work with you just to make sure you really understand his concern is start by repeating his objection. It's too large. He says it's too large. You say it's too large. He'll say yes, because in a car, a friend of mine who sells big cars, Rolls Royces, Cadillacs, Bentleys, and so on, hears that from time to time. They say, well, I love the car, but it's too large, which is Latin for it costs more than I have. But besides that, they'll say it's too large. And he says, it's too large. And he lets them say, yes, that won't even fit in my garage. Well, you don't want to park this car outside, so let's go look at some smaller options that are just as good a car and so on. So you make sure that you really understand what his concern or objection is, and it may not be the way they phrased it to start with. Fourth, and this is something I use frequently, and sometimes I'll have to admit I don't ask permission because I've established a pretty strong relationship with people right up front. So I don't feel I have to, but I probably ought to get back to it. You say, you take out a notepad, or you already had it out, and you say, do you mind if I take a few notes as we go along? The reason they like that, and I don't think I've ever had anybody say, no, you can't take notes. They're impressed with your concern, with your professionalism, and that you care enough about what they're saying to be worthy of taking a few notes. That puts you in, I've coined the phrase years ago, 40 years ago or so. People buy from people they know, like, trust, and with whom they feel safe. And this contributes to the trust and feel safe part of that equation. You're showing them that you really care enough to get it down right. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions. If they say something, you write down, look up and say, just make sure I understand that. Do the it's in here in the closers part two somewhere. I talk about in the Coast Guard and the Navy, I'm sure they teach you to take a turn. What that means is you've got that davit sitting on the dock. You got the line. I used to call it a rope, but they prefer line going out to the cutter or ship or boat, and your job is to pull it into the dock. Well, there's tides and currents and all sorts of things. So you're taught when you pull it in, let's say 4 or 5 feet, you take a turn. That means take the line, wrap it around the divot so that you never lose that again. You don't want to pull it in the same 5 feet 5 times. You take a turn. In sales presentations, I think of that example frequently. If I get you to agree to a couple of minor points or to clear up some confusion or what have you, I take a turn. We agree that that's the answer to that, so we don't have to double back and cover it again. More importantly, so they can't go back and cover it again when they get panicked that maybe the time to make a yes or no decision is approaching. So you take a turn, you ask questions, you take notes, and you lock in every step. If, for instance, we've gotten over the price objection, they know what the price is. So you've gotten over that. You don't have to discuss price again. You might have to discuss their budget later on, but you've taken a turn. Price is locked in. Their garage is big enough to hold the XYZ, the boat, the car, the whatever. Take a turn, lock it in. We've now agreed that the price is reasonable. It'll fit in your garage. So what we're doing, picture a funnel, we're getting the big objections out of the way and we're getting down to the little stuff. Truman used to call it the salami game, the way the communists win at things. He said they take a little slice and that's not worth fighting of the salami, and that's not worth fighting over. And then they take another slice and that's not worth fighting over. And then you're down to just the string, and who would fight over a piece of salami string? So piece by piece by piece, they have taken you. I'm not advocating communism or Marxism, but it's a technique they use that is handy in selling. Whenever you make a small victory, agree on a small point, lock it in, take a turn. And so you don't have to go back and do that again. Fifth, don't forget the value and strength of your basic proven sales presentation. People say, I don't like to work on a script. Well, I don't want you to work on a script either if I can tell it's a script. If it's just something you practiced that makes sense, that is effective, etc., I'd prefer you use a script. I don't want you stumbling and bumbling and making up answers. If you've got, in Holiday Magic Cosmetics, we had a 47-minute opportunity meeting. And it was, if you got in front of the room, you had proven you could do it word for word and make it sound as if you were just making it up off the top of your head. Then when the lights came back up after you watched a short movie, the movie ended with turn to the person who brought you here and ask them how you can get started in holiday magic. So there was a logical reason to turn to them with your legal pad and start drawing circles and go through I think it was 9 closes. I mean, it may have been 6, doesn't make any difference. But the 9 scripted closes, you went through close 1. If they bought, great. If not, you went to close 2, etc. And warfare didn't break out till you got to the very end. If you were so poor that you had to get to the very end. So one of the reasons I don't remember how many closes, set closes there were, I never got to the end of that. We made sure the meeting went well. If I gave it, it went very well. If I then worked with you at the table, drawing on the circles on the legal pad, that went well, all because it was rehearsed, planned out. It was not, I don't like the word scripted presentation because it gets such a, people, oh, that's terrible. a planned, proven, tested presentation. Why in the world would you go flying from not knowing what to do, but going flying off and make it up every time? In direct mail, there's a letter with the Wall Street Journal that they've been sending out for over 40 years. It's their test letter. It is so good, and all the dozens of letters they've mailed against it to test, they've never been able to beat it. So they send out the same letter over and over and over again. It starts out on a spring day 25 years ago, talks about two people that were in college, graduated at the same age from the same college with the same grade point. Everything was the same. And then they imply one of them read the Wall Street Journal every day and the other one didn't. The one who did was head of the company or president or something of the company. The one who didn't was stuck in middle management. And they've never come up with anything that could beat that. Most of you listening to this have probably had that letter. You've received that letter and read it. The best direct sales letter of all time, bar none. So when the first 5 steps have failed, go back to your basic presentation that has been proven by you, others in the company, et cetera, is your gold standard, and say, let me review some things with you, and then just go through the steps again. It'll work 89, 90% of the time anyway, but in this example, it's your fallback position. And with that, I think I've run out of my time, Denise.
Cover, let's, the sixth one. Did we cover that one?
Yeah, the fallback on your script.
Fallback, right. Okay, so we're done with this one. So what do we want to talk? Wow, that was easy. So what do we want to talk about next week?
Why don't we do page 43, Don't Let Them Distract You.
Page 43. Got it. Well, I can do that. All right. Well, before we say goodbye, do you have anything you want to tell our audience, or should we wrap it up and go do what we do for the rest of the day?
It's showtime.
I've got a book to write. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a book to. You're one of
do.
the few people I when I talk to them, I don't have to say, "What are you supposed to be doing today?" or whatever. You have a book to finish up. Get on it.
I'm working on it. I don't sleep a whole heck of a lot anyway, but now I really don't sleep very much. But I know I've said this again, and I'll say it again and again. This book has got me so excited because you forget what you know.
Yep.
And then you start digging and go, oh, I already knew that. Oh, that's, you and I have done this. We'll read something somewhere and go, oh man, that was good. I wish I had written that. I did write it.
Yeah.
So, and I know you've done
I've
the
said to
same
people
thing.
when they share something with me, I said, that was good. And they said, well, I'm glad you feel that way. You wrote it.
And I'll come across something, say, I didn't know I was that darn smart. Woohoo. So
I did.
anyway, yeah. Well, listen, everybody, as we wrap up another episode of the Closers Inner Circle podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and for asking us questions and just shooting us notes and letting us know how we're doing. Your support and your engagement are what keeps this podcast thriving. And we hope that you found today's discussion insightful and inspiring and fun. Ben and I tend to have a lot of fun. So we will see you next Wednesday, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you.